Computers aren't paintings.
Fuck you.
Hey, everybody. That is Caleb Koho.
Nah, it's Caleb.
We're covering Steve Jobs. This is Sorkin's next film after Moneyball, his second tech film, and I think this is one of his best. Koho, thoughts?
This is sort of like a special one for us. This is one where it's like, when we did Sorkin, this is kind of the episode we were like, yeah, we could talk about social network. This is one we really wanted to do. Because like for us, this is like one of this is like the quintessential Koho Boatman movie for the two of us. Like that's like where there's like the Wozniak Jobs relationship in the middle of it. It's very reminiscent of our friendship. And just like every single part of that movie has like been like a thing where it's like I think I watched on Tim's Voodoo like middle of the pandemic. I think is when I first watched it. And I think the first two people I text were Tim saying thank you for letting me have your video, and you being like, holy fucking shit, have you seen Steve Jobs? And I think that, and from there it's been like the torch we carry, where it's like, this is the best Boyle, this is the best Sorkin, this is the best whatever, and maybe it's not.
Well, it's not the best Sorkin.
But it's like it's the best from a lot of people involved for us.
Yes.
Where it's like I think we both like we could say that the better version of our show, Blank Check, just did Danny Boyle. So like So everyone around us is on a Danny Boyle kick. I think the two of us could say pretty confidently, at least I can, it's Boyle's best.
Yes.
Like,
great.
And so like,
I'll even make a bold claim.
It's Fassbender's
I think
best.
this is the best performance from at least three of the people.
Okay, let's go through it real quick. It's Fassbender's best.
Yes. It's Winslet's best.
I think it's Winslet's best. I think it's Rogen's best.
It's Rogen's best.
Is it Jeff Daniels' best?
That's
the question mark. Is it Jeff Daniels' best performance? I don't think it is.
Purple Rose of Cairo is
okay. Like I would also throw in like Squid the Whale also, where it's like I don't even know if it's his second best performance, but like
that's true.
Stuhlbarg also, I wouldn't say it's Stuhlbarg's best performance, but like huge like
if you wanted to tell me this was Stuhlbarg's best performance, I actually wouldn't call you crazy.
I wouldn't call you crazy either. Like I mean, yeah, Serious Man, Call Me by Your Name, the two big ones. But it's I
think this is probably number 3. This is number 3.
Yeah, this or I'd say either this or Shape of Water maybe for what his third.
I mean,
is.
if we're only counting film and we're not counting television, this is probably Sarah Snook's best performance.
It is kind of like, and I mean, it's probably John Ortiz's best performance. Like if we're gonna write the list,
true.
Write down the list. Is it Catherine Waterston's best performance? Like
yes,
it's like a nuts cast. Which like we should say this is an insane cast.
Yeah.
A movie that I think for most people, they'd be like, yeah, this is a character study of one person. Turns into, yeah, Steve Jobs is the focal point, but there's like 30 people around him who are incredible actors giving incredible performances that you're just like blown away by.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the cast, making sure there's not like another like mid-tier actor that we haven't discussed. I think we've talked about all the big ones, but yeah, this is like everybody's at the top of their game in this movie, and that I even think goes down to like the crew, not just like Sorkin and Boyle, but also like just from the edit. I think the editing is really good in this. I think the cinematography is really good in this. Like for a film that is essentially just like from a script level, this could be 3 plays. Like you could make this movie into just like a play with 3 acts is what I mean by that. Like this is just a 3-act play. And yet it feels very cinematic.
Definitely. I think like that comes down even to like Daniel Pemberton's score. Like I think there's a lot of elements about this movie that are like so undersung.
I think this might be the best work from Pemberton.
I don't know if I go that far. I mean, I think his score for Spider-Verse is pretty perfect.
Well, that's because you're you.
I mean, sure, but like, if you take the 2 scores next to each other, like they're really both really good. Also, can we talk about how fucking nuts it is that Daniel Pemberton's only Oscar nomination is that song from Chicago 7 that we'll talk about in 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Isn't that weird? He's never been nominated for composing a score.
That's funny.
He's been on the short list like consistently, but he's never made it. I think that's nuts because he's made some bangers.
I forgot about that. You're right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like something I wanted to bring up that I think we should probably get into. It is so weird to me that this movie was not more of an Oscar darling than it was.
I agree. And I think that probably comes down to this has a very troubled production.
Well, let's get into the context.
Which starts all the way back in 2011 when Walter Isaacson wrote the book Steve Jobs, and it was bought by Sony, and they hired Sorkin immediately to adapt it off of Social Network. The original two people who were considered for the role were George Clooney and Noah Weil to play Steve Jobs.
Who's Noah Weil?
Noah Weil you would know most notably from ER, as well as the TV film Pirates of Silicon Valley, where he played Steve Jobs in 1999.
It's this guy. Why do I know this guy? I know this guy. Oh, this guy. He's in A Few Men. He's the freaking the quiet one who shoved the rag in the guy's mouth. And
basically, he's just like that. He's just like, oh, that guy. And I think the only reason they considered him is because he played him before.
Yeah. And he's also like worked with Sorkin. So
right.
that's probably part of it.
So then in 2012, Sorkin is writing the script with the help of Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak himself is giving him historical accuracy and like pointers and like what happened and what didn't. He said that his screenplay would be made up of 3 30-minute long scenes covering 16 years, which is exactly what the movie ended up being.
A little bit longer than 30 minutes for at least a few of them, because the movie ends up being about 2 hours.
Right. Sorkin said that he did have a chance to speak with everyone, including Lisa, who did not talk to Isaacson while writing the book, but would talk to Sorkin when he was writing the movie. He talked to everyone of the main characters: Lisa, Scully, Anderson, or Andy, and Joanna, and Steve Wozniak. And he said, however, almost all of his dialogue is complete fiction. So in 2014, Sorkin finishes the script, and David Fincher enters negotiations to direct the movie because Sorkin was like, we did Social Network, come back and let's make this. Basically, we're going to make another Social Network. And that Fincher had selected Christian Bale for the lead role as Jobs. Fincher leaves the project a couple months later due to contract disputes, which the story behind that is funny because it broke in the trades before Sony even knew that he was leaving. Like Amy Pascal found out from reading it in Hollywood Reporter that he had turned down the part or the job, and she called Fincher and was like, hey, did you see this? And like apparently there's like a review or something, or there was another headline next to it, and Fincher's like, yeah, that headline, like the headline next to it is crazy. Anyway, bye. Like he like just did not address that he had quit the movie. And so that's why Sony and Fincher don't get along. He basically was like, fuck you. And so then after that, Danny Boyle casts Leonardo DiCaprio, which would have been their first collaboration since The Beach, to do it. And then by October 2014, DiCaprio leaves. Christian Bale re-enters talks. But at the same time, they talk to Matt Damon, Bradley Cooper, and Ben Affleck about playing Steve Jobs. Which Ben Affleck, one of our boys, would have been a bad casting choice. I think I love Ben, but I think that'd be a bad choice. I think Damon's also a bad casting choice, to be clear.
I do. I think Damon's a great actor. I don't buy him as
what Steve Jobs is.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, as this more analytical, like
I buy clearly from Air, we buy him as passionate. But I don't think we buy him as not being compassionate in his passion.
Yes. Like that's the thing is I don't really think I could see Damon as just being a like complete and utter dick.
Right.
Which is what you kind of need, especially in like the first 30 minutes of this movie. Like and I think, and we'll get into the actual film and how brilliant Fassbender's performance is in this, but like essentially giving us, you know, a character at 3 completely different points in their life, and the way he plays each one is brilliant. And I think Damon definitely could have handled that last third and would have been great at the last third. I don't think he could have handled the first 2.
Definitely. And I think Bradley Cooper would have been great. I do think Bradley Cooper would have been really good at this. I don't think he'd be as good as Michael Fassbender, but I can see Cooper playing all 3 parts. I think he'd be I think he would lean a little bit more into the anger than Fassbender does.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I think Cooper's almost the opposite problem with Damon, Where I think he could play the first two. I don't know if I would really buy him in that third.
See, I can see Cooper being in the third because I don't know. Maybe it's just like how much I have seen A Star Is Born and love him in A Star Is Born. Where it's like I can see him being the third one.
I can't buy him as like this old guy, feel kind of more resigned. Like I don't know. I
wonder if that'll change for you after you see Maestro though. Like again, like maybe that might.
That's true. That's true. I could maybe.
I guess I more so see the potential in him being able to do all three. I wouldn't replace Fassbender for it, but of the options there, I'm like, if Fassbender says no, I would take Bradley Cooper. I think Cooper would be.
You're just more of a Cooper guy than I am.
I mean, that's true. I do love Bradley Cooper. So then they hire Bale back, and they cast Seth Rogen as Wozniak. They said he was the first and only choice for Wozniak, and they got Rogen in. Done.
Like, I mean, it's so funny that, like, you know, an actor who had basically never done drama up to that point was just so agreed upon as the perfect choice. But then you see Wozniak and you see, like, old footage of Wozniak, and it's like, yeah, like, not necessarily but it makes sense.
Part of me wonders in that casting choice if they didn't take at least a little bit of a cue from the Shitty Jobs movie with Kutcher when they cast Josh Gad in that part.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I wonder if they were like, oh yeah, you know, Josh Gad did pretty well at that, and maybe we should look for someone of that caliber, and they went for Rogen, who I think is just a better actor.
Well, to be fair, Gad at that time, especially when they were filming, like, I mean, I guess he had done Frozen by then, but still,
Frozen and Jobs come out the same year.
Yeah.
So he's and he'd done the Book of Mormon, which was like the thing that made Josh Gad a name.
That's true.
So it's like,
it's honestly kind of funny that Gad as an actor basically coasted off of Frozen for a long time.
It is weird that he still hasn't really, like, he was like the thing in 2013, 2014, and then he just didn't do anything.
Well, it's because they tried to put him in stuff, and, like, it necessarily wasn't his fault, but that stuff was bad. Like, the two movies where they were like, okay, Josh Gad, you're going to try to be a thing, was The Wedding Ringer and Pixels.
Right.
And they were The Wedding Ringer and
Pixels. So it's like his career ended pretty quick. Yeah. And then Frozen 2. So, like...
And, like, Beauty and the Beast 2017.
Which he's fun in. He's fun in.
I will say, he is good in that movie. I don't like that movie. I will actually say, he is the second best performance in that movie.
I'd say third, but fair. That's right.
Stevens?
No, you forget I'm a huge Luke Evans guy in that movie. I love Luke Evans.
Oh, man! Luke Evans is bad!
I think Luke Evans is fantastic. I think Luke Evans and Kevin Kline are like the absolute standouts of that
movie. Kline, I'll give you. Kevin Kline is...
I think we can both fully, like, full-chested agree. Kevin Kline is way better than that movie deserves.
Okay. He's so good. It's nice to hear you admit that.
He's so good. He is better than that movie deserves. Because that movie is, like, to me, that's a 3.5-star movie. I enjoy it. It's not as good as, it's, like, fine. But, like, Kevin Kline's, like, given, like, a 4.5-star movie performance in a 3.5-star movie. It's not.
Kevin Kline, like, thinks he's going to win an Oscar. It's actually very funny in that movie.
And, like, if the movie were better, I would maybe put him on my short list. But, like, I don't know. So then Chastain is the first person that is being considered to play Joanna Hoffman. And I don't really know where they get Chastain from, but it's the first time Chastain's name is mentioned in relation to Sorkin.
Because I don't know how she would... I love Jessica Chastain, don't get me wrong, and she's obviously great at doing Sorkin dialogue. I don't think she would have been right for this character.
Would have been an awful choice for this part.
I think she would be too forceful. Jessica Chastain is when you need someone with a little more oomph to them. You know?
Jessica Chastain, to me, is like... would have been a female Michael Fassbender playing off of male Michael Fassbender.
Exactly.
I just don't think they fit. Whereas then apparently also, according to Ike Barinholtz, he said he auditioned for Wozniak. I don't know if that's true or not, but I also think that's a bad choice if he would have been cast.
To be fair, I just hate Ike Barinholtz.
I don't like Ike Barinholtz either.
He's one of the guys who I don't get why he's famous. Like, he's just... He's really obnoxious. He and Nick Kroll, who run in the same.
You have a weird hatred. Like, I don't think Nick Kroll is a great actor or performer by any means, but I think you like hate Nick Kroll to a weird level.
Nick Kroll has.
Nick Kroll and Zach Braff, you just like hate.
What?
It's like Nick Kroll and Zach Braff, you're just like burn them with fire.
Honestly,
like,
Nick Kroll even worse because the Zach Braff thing. I'm gonna drop the mask a little bit. I don't actually hate Zach Braff all that much. Let's be real here. I love Chicken Little too much to actually hate Zach Braff. I just don't like Garden State, and even then, I don't even hate Garden State that much. Scrubs kind of annoyed me, but like, again, I don't actually hate him. He's just not somebody I like. Nick Kroll, on the other hand, though, this is 100% genuine. Nick Kroll has never been funny. He has always been. What? What thing is Nick Kroll funny in?
Big Mouth, but you don't like Big Mouth.
Yeah.
That's a you problem. That's not a him problem. He's great in that show. You just don't like the show. Like, him and John Mulaney are excellent in this stupid show.
He's obnoxious when he shows up in Parks and Rec. He's obnoxious when he shows up in Community and almost ruins that episode for me. I can't even. He's obnoxious in Sing. I hate Gunter.
Okay, but everyone's obnoxious in Sing. The movie's obnoxious.
Not true. Seth MacFarlane is the one good thing about that movie.
I am one of the biggest MacFarlane defenders you'll ever meet. And while he's fine in the movie, that movie is, there's not enough MacFarlane for you to be like, that singing, crooning rat is really good.
He's the Frank Sinatra mouse. He gets to be the Frank Sinatra mouse.
Also, you do not get to slander Gunter like this, okay? Gunter is a saint.
Frank Sinatra mouse.
Gunter. Doc will kill you. Gunter is life.
Gunter would be served up with my eggs in the morning.
Good God, man, you're a monster.
I don't care.
So then Bale leaves and Fassbender gets the part. And then they need a Johanna Huffman, and they cast Scarlett Johansson.
That's yeah. Oh, Scarlett. Oh,
Scarlett Johansson.
To be fair, I actually think she would have been good.
Okay.
I don't know how she would have pulled off the accent.
No, I don't. Well, here's we'll get to the accent also, where it's like Winslet loses the accent for long portions of this movie, and then we'll have a spike where it like comes through, and you're like, oh yeah, she has an accent, but like you don't notice it because she's like so good at like delivering the dialogue, but you forget that she's Polish or has an accent for long periods of time within this movie.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but fair.
I just don't think the accent's as important to the movie as like you would think it is. But also, I issue with Johansson's more so that like while I think she's great, I love Scarlett Johansson. Don't get me wrong. I just think that she would not. I don't think she could go toe to toe with Jobs. Like I feel like she's too gentle. She's almost the opposite direction of Chastain for me.
That's fair.
I don't think she could push back. Chastain would push too much. Johansson would not push enough.
I actually do think that's fair. You know, I think the pushing would feel when ScarJo pushes it all, unless she goes full Marriage Story. When ScarJo pushes it, feels more like playful banter and less like full pushing.
That's the thing. If Scarlett Johansson is Joanna, the line where it's like, "Why didn't we ever sleep together? Because we're not in love," would not have landed as well. Because Scarlett Johansson is just inherently, naturally, not her fault, very flirtatious. That line would not land.
I think, there would be way too much sexual chemistry between Jobs and Hoffman.
I agree. And that's not to say like Johansson's trying to be. It's just Johansson naturally has that charisma.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been bad. So then it goes into turnaround, Universal gets it. The Sony emails leak, which causes a delay in production and reveals 3 people had been offered roles and they had turned them down. 2 men were offered John Scully and turned it down. The first was Matthew McConaughey,
who I actually don't think would have been as good as Scully.
No. You mean
as Daniels.
And the next one, which I think is wild, that they offered this person this part and not the lead part. Tom Cruise was offered John Scully.
And I'm conflicted on this. Because on one hand, from a pure performance level, I think Cruise would have killed it.
Yeah.
I think there is one major issue with Cruise playing that role.
He looks so young still.
He looks like he's 30. Tom Cruise is an ageless being, and having him as Scully, like the father figure motif would just not work. Which is like what you need with that character.
Because Fassbender looks older than Cruise despite being like 10 years younger. It's wild.
No, that's
I agree. I actually think it would have been I also think I don't know if it'd be as good at all. I don't think it'd be as good as all. But I think it'd be I would like to at least see like 2 or 3 scenes of Cruise playing Jobs. Because I think he would have nailed a lot of the aspects that Fassbender does with the first two. But I also think Cruise has it in him to do the last third.
Oh, I agree. You look at Magnolia, you look at Jerry Maguire, you look at Born on the 4th of July.
You look at Top Gun Maverick.
Yes. Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Him and Rooster.
Sure. I'll allow it. I think if you look at I think if Cruise, not necessarily, I think he would have been on par with Fassbender. I think he probably gives the same level quality of performance as Fassbender. I think Cruise would have won the Oscar.
I also think Cruise would win
DiCaprio. I legitimately think Cruise would win.
And I'll be honest, I agree, and I think that is entirely on the back of he's Tom Cruise, he doesn't have an Oscar, and people love Tom Cruise.
And it would be him playing Steve Jobs and killing it. Like, that would just be a perfect storm of greatness. And honestly,
it's a new world where DiCaprio wins for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2019, and Phoenix doesn't win for Joker, and now Phoenix would then probably win for like Napoleon or some shit later down the line.
That's probably, or actually what I think happens, if that happens, DiCaprio is just like, let's push The Revenant to 2016.
I don't think he does that. I
think DiCaprio wanted that Oscar.
Right, but I also
wanted that Oscar.
I fully think he would leave it, and he would get nominated. And if he lost, I think he would be. I feel like he would have the hubris to be like, "No, I'm DiCaprio, and they'll choose me over Tom Cruise." Like, I feel like he would believe that, and then he'd lose, and then he would definitely take the Tarantino project because he's like Tarantino, old Hollywood, actor playing actor, give me an Oscar. And he just takes his dub. He takes his
Oscar. And then he would win for that, which I actually think
I think it's the better performance anyway. He should have won it that year anyway.
Yeah, like I didn't used to hold that opinion. I now hold that opinion that he's.
I held that opinion honestly before you did, where I was like DiCaprio's better than Driver, and Phoenix.
Did you hold that position before I did?
I've held it for like a year now, where I'm like DiCaprio is.
I mean, I've held it for about a year, probably.
Oh, never mind. I don't know. I just remember we had a conversation where we talked about it, and I was like, he should win. And you're like, I don't know. I still take Driver.
That's fair. Maybe then you're right.
It was close, but I love him in that movie. And someday, maybe when the movie critic comes out, for the sake of whatever, we might just for fun do a Tarantino bitch. But
dude, the movie critic is one of those movies that, like, when it comes out, that's Fableman's to the nth degree. Like, that's just going to be
it's like based on the main character's a real person.
I thought Tarantino dispelled that rumor.
Oh, I don't know if he did or not. I just saw like a interview.
People were saying that it was based on like a female film critic from like.
No. The person that I saw, it was actually like a Tarantino quote. That he is basing it on the backup movie critic for this porno mag he used to read when he was working at a porno theater.
Oh.
And he was like, because he describes him as being like super funny and super raunchy. Like basically being like, they said he was like a 30-year-old, but he like acted like a 60-year-old old man, like when he wrote. Mm-hmm. And like, it sounds nuts. Like it basically sounds like he was like, he's writing about a real person. He did like research apparently on like when he died and what happened to him and stuff like that. But like, apparently he said it's a totally fictional story with a wholly real person at the center. I think that's nuts. That'll be fun.
I'm not like Tarantino hasn't done that before.
True. So then in 2014. Oh yeah, sorry, the last one. Charlize Theron had been offered Joanna Mason.
I actually think she would have been good. I think she
she
actually would have been very good.
Theron turned it down. And then after Johansson dropped out with Bale, with Bale, then Natalie Portman signed on to play Joanna, which I think is a bad casting choice.
Yeah. No, did not work.
She withdrew, and then they announced Stuhlbarg cast and Daniels is cast. Daniels is cast after he and Sorkin work on the newsroom. After literally they shoot the pilot, and Sorkin goes to Boyle and says, "You need this guy to be Scully." And then from there, Kate Winslet gets cast. Fassbender and Rogen are officially confirmed. Catherine Waterston is cast. Basically, at this point, they ramp it all up. Daniels is cast. Everyone gets thrown in there. John Ortiz is announced to join the cast in February of 2015. And they start shooting at the beginning of 2015 in Jobs' childhood home, and all throughout San Francisco. They basically did a whole bunch of cool filming techniques, which is why I think Alwyn Kuchler really deserved a nomination, because they filmed in 16 millimeter for 1984, 35 millimeter for 1988, and digital for 1998, which I think is really cool. That's why they all look different.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's dope. That's cool.
I like it a lot. Yeah, and then they what did they say? The cinematographer said it's the most brilliant and challenging film he'd ever made. The goal is to make sure that the visuals kept up with the words, because Boyle and Sorkin both talk a mile a minute. So then they ended up doing editing and visual effects and all sorts of that jazz. Danny Boyle had a bunch of cool ideas that he wanted to do, and Sorkin and him were kind of like, Sorkin was very hesitant about Danny Boyle, apparently, where he was like, because Danny Boyle is very protective of his writer, so he was excited about that. But I think, like, from what it sounds like here, Sorkin was like, "Don't fuck with my script." Like, and Boyle was kind of like, "Well, what if we did this and this and this and this?" They don't go into detail what changes you want to make, but like Boyle apparently was like, "What if we did this visually with this and move this here?" And like, Boyle's a very like creative guy, where he's like, "I want to move and play with different things and do things I haven't done." And Sorkin's very like, "Keep my words the way I wrote them, you fucker."
You are not letting the Saints come in and talk to the kid for most of this movie like you did in Millions.
Exactly. So he's like, Sorkin was probably like, "If you sunshine me right now, I'll kill you." So yeah.
If there's a weird scene where somebody crawls into a toilet like Train Spotting,
right. Pemberton gets brought on. Pemberton's approach is to divide the score into 3 sections, and he wanted to sort of make he says the first act is analog, which is why his entire first act, the first part, sounds very mechanical. He said the second part is orchestral, because Jobs plays the orchestra. And the third one, he wanted to have a very digital feel, because we're entering the new millennium. So he basically wrote 3 unique scores for this one movie, which is really cool. They also needed to get the Libertines, the Maccabees, and Bob Dylan into the movie. And that the Maccabee song "Grew Up at Midnight" was chosen by Danny Boyle himself, who's a big fan of the band and a very big soundtrack guy.
What song is that?
"Grew Up at Midnight," Maccabees. I don't. It's the one that just plays at the end.
Well, the one that, like at the like final. Yes, okay.
Yes, the final scene. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's Boyle. Boyle says that's like his biggest contribution to like the story, which I think that's just Boyle. That's Boyle being like the most modest director in the history of filmmaking. But yeah. So yeah, that's how they made Steve Jobs. It's thousands of different realities of casting choices and 2 very different directors at one point to direct. I don't know if I would like Fincher's direction more than Boyle's, weirdly enough.
I agree with you, simply because I think Fincher would have played up like the first and second acts more, and I think Fincher would not have nailed the reconciliation.
No.
Fincher is a very cold director, and that would work perfectly. He would honestly probably direct the first 2/3 better than Boyle.
I would agree. But again, this is a movie told in 3 distinct parts where this character goes through is basically 3 different people. And I
Mhm.
think that like you said, Fincher would nail the first 2 and he'd fuck up the ending. I think even in a movie where like Benjamin Button, which is like the warmest he's probably ever been, is still a very cold movie.
Yes.
And so I feel like he would have been too it would have this movie would have felt very chilly. I also don't know if he would have liked the 3 thing like knowing Fincher, I feel like he would have taken the 3 parts of his life and then had Sorkin rework it so they were all happening simultaneously out of order.
Yeah.
Like Fincher would be like, "We're gonna do it all at once," and I feel like that would have been too much, way too much.
That would have been overkill. And here's something I want to posit, and I don't think this would have been better than the movie we got. But here's my crazy pitch. What if I'm not there this movie?
Oh, I agree. Here's the thing. We you know our idea for a very big biopic that's coming out that they're never gonna do that we should do. But we call it Steve Jobsing things now at this point in our minds. Is like we want to take the format of Steve Jobs and then like the concept of multiple castings from I'm Not There and blend them. And I think I think you can do that with a lot of people and it'd be rad. But I also don't think I like the I'm Not There concept for Steve Jobs.
Hold on. I'm not even talking about let me rephrase what I'm saying. I'm not even saying I'm not thereing the actors. I'm saying you can keep the actors the same. I'm saying a different director for each of the thirds.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
You get Fincher for the first, Boyle for the third, and then for the second, I don't know. Honestly, like maybe a Nolan just to mix it up a little bit.
Okay, if we're doing Fincher for the first, and who'd you say we want to do Boyle for the last one?
Boyle for the last.
I think if we're gonna do the middle, where it's like interpersonal relationships and like
what about Sorkin?
Chess, no. I love Sorkin, but no. I think I think Tommy would be really fucking good. Because that would be because that's a lot of interconnected interpersonal relationships, and there's a lot of walk and talks in that one bit.
Yeah, and that
First of all, this movie is one long walk and talk, but also the second part has the most walking and talking. So like Schlamy should get to do the most walking and talking if we're doing 3 directors. That'd only be right. But I still think Schlamy should direct a Sorkin movie. I think that's something that still needs to happen at some point. Before Sorkin hangs it up, he needs to let Schlamy make one of his movies. Because Schlamy hasn't made a movie, I think, since the 90s.
No, Schlamy did something weird. Didn't he do like Eat, Pray, Love or something?
He made I thought So I Married an Axe Murderer is like his only movie.
Maybe that's his only movie, and I might be mixing him up with John Wells.
John Wells, fun fact, is the producer and the original choice to direct Love and Mercy. Fun fact. Which I think that's the weird thing I found out very recently. But no,
okay, never mind. Yeah,
never mind. His only movie is So I Married an Axe Murderer.
You're right. I think I was mixing up with John Wells, who I think did August Osage County is what I think John Wells did. I'm double checking.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He did Burnt and August Osage County, and also The Company Men.
What a strong director that guy.
Yeah, and the worst season of The West Wing.
Right. But like also Schlamy has been very busy since 2017, being the president of the WGA. So he's been president of the WGA for almost 10 years. This man is like revered, but he's
probably very busy right now. Then
he's probably swamped at this exact moment. But I feel like there's a world where Schlamy makes a Sorkin movie and it rocks. Like it because like he directed the West Wing special when they like the COVID special, which was awesome. Like I get that they're like script in hand reenacting a thing he's already directed, but like the new way they stage it in parts as a play and film it, Schlamy rocks. I think he would do great. But I like that idea. I think doing an I'm Not There for directors of one person's life is super interesting concept. And I really wonder if they did it that way and it came out the way like this does, and even better into a home run, if they don't for the gimmick. nominate all three of them together as one ticket for Steve Jobs.
I'm curious how that would work.
I feel like it would be like David Fincher, Tommy Shalhoub, and Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs. It'd just be like Ethan Cohen and Joel Cohen.
Fair.
I feel like they would just nominate all three on one ticket. And then how do you not vote for that? Like, how do you not vote to give Fincher an Oscar and Boyle an Oscar and Shalhoub an Oscar all on one? Because then you have Oscar winner, president of the DGA that we love. Fincher still doesn't have one, and Boyle, who people love, getting a second in one go. It'd be the same. It's the same thing for if Maestro gets nominated for picture, and Cooper, Scorsese, and Spielberg all win together. If it wins, that's like just so tempting to not just. How would you not just vote for that for the sake of Spielberg and Scorsese winning an Oscar together? Like that's just a thing that you almost have to do just to do. But no, I like the concept. So then the movie.
Yes.
Then we just get into it finally. 35
minutes into the show. Let's talk about
this. This is going to be our longest episode by far.
Yeah. I mean, which, like, it makes sense. It makes sense. Because
it should be.
Yeah.
This is probably, like, in terms of, like, favorites, I don't know. This might be my personal, like, I can't say that because I think Social Network's perfect. But, like, I love this one a lot. Like, this, Moneyball, and Social Network are, like, inches apart from each other. Like, I think that's, like, the best 3-film run of a writer ever.
Yeah. And I think, like, the thing about Jobs is, and why we love it so much, is that we are some of the only people who love it as much as we do, at least in this community. Like, but it also just feels like, in general, Jobs has always kind of been, like, the forgotten middle child of, like, Sorkin and Boyle and...
Right. Like, when you talk about all the people involved, it's rarely the first thing brought up, especially when it comes to, like the person that you'll first hear it from most is either Fassbender or Sorkin.
Yeah.
And even then, when it comes to Sorkin, you probably hear it 4th or 5th. At this point, maybe 6th in the conversation on popularity. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm more keen to hear, like, obviously Social Network, Moneyball, A Few Good Men. At this point, I feel like I would hear The Trial of Chicago 7 and Molly's Game before I would hear Steve Jobs.
Honestly, probably, yeah.
And, like, I'm at that point where it's like, man, I love this movie to death, and I feel like it's I think it deserves to be talked about as, like, one of the first 3 things you say when you say Sorkin. Mm-hmm. One of the first 4, even, if you want to throw West Wing into it too. But, like, this should be, and I think we can start here. I think this should be talked about as the best thing in Michael Fassbender's career.
Yes,
it's his best performance
and his best movie. All double down.
Do you think Steve Jobs is better than Inglourious Basterds?
Oh, I'm just an idiot. I just forgot.
They're very close on my ranking, so, like, I'm not going to say you're an idiot for it.
I know they're both in my top 40, but Bastard is a brilliant movie. I
think you can have a conversation about it. Like,
no, that's fair. But I just forgot about Bastards. No, Bastards is the best movie Fassbender is in. His best performance, though, easily Jobs. And let's just talk about the first third starting off. I think this is definitely, you see Jobs at his most fiery, and it's the most, like, I have the biggest dick in the room, for lack of a better word. Like, it's just the big, like, push. You get the start of all the dynamics of everyone, of Wozniak wanting Jobs to acknowledge the Apple II team and feeling neglected by Jobs. We even get a little bit of short flashback into the dynamic. We get the dynamic between Hoffman and Jobs. We get, Scully kind of being Jobs' father figure. And I think his most fiery relationship, outside of his dynamic with Chris Ann, which even isn't even quite as fiery because she's more fiery at him in that than the other way around, is him and Stuhlbarg, Andy Hertzfeld, which is where we get, I think, the best interaction of the first third, which is the you had 1 week, the universe was, or you had 3 weeks, the universe was created in a third of that time. Well, one of these days you'll have to tell us how we did it.
Which we have been spoiled, where it's like, we love that line. It is in the West Wing at least twice.
It's in the West Wing at least twice, and then I found out when I watched 1776 that is not even a fucking original line.
Oh
It
yeah,
is
that's
from 1776.
which is one of Sorkin's favorite musicals. So like he loves that. So of course he stole that line. But like I also think that the best part of that segment is not even that line. I think the best part of that segment with Andy is where he's like,
the odds in Russian
he's
roulette
like, the odds in Russian roulette of surviving are
are
one in
5 and 6. You
are
just
5 and
reverse
6.
those odds.
Yeah. And he's like, we usually need to reversals. I love the part where then he like is like, instead of singing and complaining, I try and get more bullets out of the gun.
Yes.
It's such a great line. And then when he's like, I need to shirt this size, pocket, and he just goes on that tangent, and they all get in the elevator, and goes, and Andy, and just puts and then he doesn't even pull the trigger. He stands there, the doors close, and then he drops it and walks away.
Yeah.
Like cold. Stands there until it closes and goes. That's how fucking cunning and cold this motherfucker is in the first act. Absolute stone cold bitch, Michael Fassbender in this first act. Incredible shit.
It is so good. He is like just so good in this first act, so cold, so calculated. I love the confrontation with him and Chrisanne, and like 26% of the men in America could be my father.
Which also is wild. It's wild to me that she's really only in this segment.
Yeah, well, she's in
in the next segment a little bit, but she's not in the last segment at all.
No.
And so this is really where Watterson is getting the most of her shots in, and she's really good. She goes toe to toe with Fassbender really well.
No, she definitely. I think she is the only person who kind of shapes Fassbender a little bit.
Oh, definitely. She rattles him to the point where like he's talking to Kate Winslet before. He's like, "I need you to be in the room." It diffuses a confrontation, and then she's like, she leaves and takes Lisa out, and he's like, "I thought you were gonna stay." She's like, "I don't do confrontation," and they like leave. Is great, but what I love is that then it's the same mode of the Social Network opening conversation to me, where they're having two conversations at the same time. But the difference is it's not Rooney Mara who is not able to keep up with it. It's someone who can have both conversations at the same time with him.
Yes.
So they're ping-ponging between her being like, you said I slept with 26% of the men in America. He's like, no, by statistical math, it means this. And that's what fucking lost me man of the year. And she's like, yeah, like they're back and forth on two different things is great.
Yeah.
And I love the time man of the year bit in there where like Joanna's like, you didn't lose. I doubt him talking to that is what ruins the thing, and blah, blah, blah. And like the payoff for that in the third act is amazing. I love this part, especially with the absolute button on this part that breaks my heart every time. Where she's like, she's like, Daddy named the computer after me. And he goes, I'm not, do you know what a coincidence is? And just breaks down the coincidence. And so she's like, so it is a coincidence. I'm named after the computer. And it's like that moment where he's like, no one was named after anything. And then she leaves, and Chrisanne's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Is that like earth-shattering moment where you're like, wow, dude, fuck you.
It's like, it's honestly like such a bold play because it like sums up this character at this point in time so perfectly. But it's something, and I wonder if this is part of the reason why maybe the movie itself doesn't get as grand of a reception, because it's kind of off-putting in a way that I could understand almost like stopping people from sympathizing with this character,
right,
to a degree. Because it is like just so like it's so hard to swallow. But I think the movie doesn't act like Jobs is a good guy.
Right. And the movie also like does a great job of like showing there is goodness in him in each part. It's just you're also seeing him on one of his worst days every time.
Yes.
So like,
and I think the interesting thing about the first part is the moment when we see really the one moment in which we really see that humanity from him in that first part, which is when Lisa makes the drawing on the Mac Paint.
Right.
And he sees what she's done. And then that's just kind of the moment that he feels, I think, well, the way I interpret that scene is he feels pride. And he has, according to all of his arguments, he shouldn't be feeling pride because that's not his daughter.
What I also love in that moment is where she's like, what can you even do on it? And she does the drawing, and he turns it around and shows it to her, right?
Yeah.
In that moment, I think he feels intense pride that she was able to do that. But I think he then takes that feeling and uses it as an attack mechanism to then make it look like I'm proud of my thing that I made. This is my daughter.
It's kind of the opposite, though. It's kind of that reverse, because it starts as an I'm proud of this thing that I made, and then because he says he spins it around first, and then he actually looks at it and he says, "You used Mac Paint." He already knows that she used Mac Paint. He is now saying that not from a level of I gotcha, Chrisanne. He is saying that from a purely human level.
Well, definitely. And I do think that is definitely a moment where he's like, wow, I'm proud of this kid. But I do think he's able to then like play that off as like, oh, I'm proud of it.
I just think it's kind of,
No, I agree. In
my opinion, the order's kind of reverse to that.
I think then after that bit where the scene is then diffused is when we meet Rogan, who I think is so great and constantly bumps in and out of my supporting actor class from that year because it's such a good class. But he's so good.
He is. He is so good. And he's good. I think it's pretty clear probably to both of us that his best scenes in the movie coming from the second segment.
Oh, definitely. But I love the introduction part here where it starts off as just this really personal, small moment between the two where he's just like, I'm so proud of you, so happy for you. We can't believe we did this. And like, he's the only person in all of the scenes where he is guard entirely down with. He's never up. He's still a bit of an asshole, but that's just who he is. But
Wozniak is never playing. He's the only person who isn't playing the game, for lack of a better word.
Right. And Wozniak will call out the game when he starts doing it too. And that's the thing that I love. And I love the build where it's like, at first, very personal in a hallway. Second time, a little less personal. It's people are around, but not really in that orchestra pit. Last time, in public, in front of everyone. Like, because he knows he has to do it in front of people because he's not listening. For 20 years, he hasn't listened, which is great. But I love this first part where they talk about like, maybe I'm mixing it up. The part where they talk about the garage is the first act, right? Where it's like back in the garage, and they do the computers are painting. Okay. I love this where it cuts back and forth, and they talk about the back of the. He's like, the same. We've been having the same fights as the garage, and then it shows them in the garage, and it intercuts where he's like, where they're arguing about the open system, and I adore the button on it where Rogan gets the absolute fuck you, where he's like, computers aren't supposed to have flaws. I'm not going to build this one with yours. Is an absolute body blow of a line.
Yeah, and then that is when we get the computers aren't paintings.
Fuck you.
Which like has just kind of become our mantra.
It is, and I love it. I love every time. I love the part in the garage then where he's like, every time you say computers aren't paintings, I'm going to say fuck you. Go ahead, say it. He's like, he's trying to keep out. He's like, say it. Computers aren't paintings. Fuck you. Continue. It's just like it's like the most them thing. I love it. I love. And
then I love the callback where he's like, say it for me one more time.
Say it again for me. Computers are paintings. Fuck you. It's like the best. I love that little interaction that they have in the first act together.
I hope I am around when you're dying. Or when you're around when I'm dying. What? No.
What the fuck?
I hope or you're around when I'm dying. Because
I hope I'm there when you're fucking dying. Just so I can say computers aren't paintings and you can whisper fuck you. Like, what the fuck?
We've literally talked about this.
No, I understand what you mean, and I think it's great. I think to us, that's awesome. But the fact that you brought this up on a live show, in front of everyone with the introduction, I hope I'm there when you die. That's the quintessential us right there.
We should just clip. This should be the same way as Mike to clip out.
Mike is dying right now watching this somewhere.
We just asked Mike, hey Mike, clip out this specific part with no comment.
We talk about which. It's the opposite of the marriage story. We're having an opposite of a marriage story moment.
The clip literally opens with me saying, I hope I'm there when you die.
It's an opposite of a marriage story. Where it's just instead of I hope you fucking get it, but it's the opposite of that right now. Jesus. No, it's no. I understand what you mean, but that's funny. Oh, so yeah. Anyway, Andy hurts still.
Computers aren't training.
Fuck you. I can't, the demo doesn't work. And I love then where he's like, where they're down there at the very end, well, almost the very end, of the act, and they start fixing it. And Joanna's like, "Why does it have to say hello?" And he's like, "Because Hollywood has made computers scary. You see how this looks like a face? I need it to say hello." Well, and he's like, "Will you spare me your Eastern European disdain or whatever he says?" Because they finally get, and she's like, "Just this once, only this time," and I'm still upset. And I love the part where she's also like, I saw 2001 the computer in 2001 said hello and it still scared the shit out of me. That's a great line too.
That is such a great line. Yeah.
I love that entire part. And then it ends with Scully.
And that's his introduction.
Yes.
That is
he's in the back with wine, and he's like opening with the quarterly report. You should have just dropped a gallon of water on the audience. And just that whole opening where he's like, and he quotes the times they are changing. He's like, the sons of drivers are beyond their command. I am Steve Jobs, and the times they are a fucking changing.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing. And he's like, I just lost $20 to Andy Hertzfeld.
I think it's $100. It's $100.
It's 100? Oh yeah.
It's it's $100 bet. And yeah, and I think, well, and because Jobs in real life really did have kind of an obsession with Bob Dylan. So I think kind of incorporating it into that is really fascinating.
And I love the analyzation of it too, where it's like, because you're an orphan, like what, like because your parents didn't want you. Like I love that like beginning of like their relationship where he's like, he warned me about being your father figure, and like that whole like moment where you like see the parental relationship there, and like how they're able to like psychoanalyze each other.
And then we also get the great moment where, which is kind of, it's funny, they kind of have the same conversation 3 times in a row. And are a continuing conversation over the span of the 3 points. And we get the first part of, why do people who were adopted feel rejected as opposed to accepted? And then Jobs responds, it's the lack of control. And then, of course, that point is responded to in the second segment.
Which is great, which then we get. Because what I love is that in the interstitials, they give you the history of everything that's important that's happened as we move to the next part, where they're like, Steve Jobs fired, moving on through like the history of this. Starts next, little black box, the Newton, and like give you everything, and then you're in the opening of the next part.
If I had a nickel for every time a 2015 business-centric movie, in order to tell you the passage of time, stitch together a bunch of different things from those times in order to communicate that to you in the interstitials, I'd have 2 nickels. And it isn't a lot, but they're both movies on my top 40. And they're both the top 2 movies of 2015.
Yeah. The 2 writers of the 2 movies don't like each other also, which is very funny.
Well,
he does not like Sorkin.
I thought it's that Sorkin doesn't like.
No, McKay has called Sorkin like lower tier knockoff. McKay says that Sorkin is a knockoff of himself.
I thought the thing that McKay said was that McKay said that he's the left-wing version of Sorkin. I thought that's the thing he said.
He's like continuously been like, yeah, Sorkin can't like tie my shoes. Like they have a weird thing.
I didn't know that.
They have a weird thing where he's like, yeah, Sorkin's the Republican version of me. And he's like does it way worse than I do and stuff like that.
He is so obnoxious as a person.
He is, and I hate him. Anyway.
Remember the Winning Time stuff?
Yeah.
With him and Will Ferrell, and
Will Ferrell is right to be upset, but he's not also, but McKay's right to not cast Ferrell in that part because Ferrell's not the right person for the part. But also, like, the drama being aired out by McKay that Ferrell didn't bring up, McKay did in interviews, is stupid.
Yeah.
McKay's just a shithead. Anyway. So the second part starts. Which conversation happens at the immediate start? Because I know the orchestra pit's like the middle.
I think the immediate start is Krisan.
Is it? Because I thought he doesn't see Krisan until Lisa leaves. I literally just watched this movie too, and I'm like, I don't remember how the second.
I literally just watched it, and I think it's Krisan first, because Hirschfeld doesn't come until after. Kirchfeld is not until after Rogan, because Hirschfeld is with Avi.
Yeah.
So it's not Hirschfeld. It might just, I mean, he probably has a conversation with Hoffman first before.
Well, definitely. But I think, because I think the last person he talks to is obviously Scully. He talks to Scully last.
He talks to Scully last. And then before Scully, it's Hirschfeld and the reporter, John Ortiz.
Yeah.
And before that, it's Rogan. And I think
because I maybe it is, but like it's like they have a brief conversation where it's like, oh, I'm late. Oh yeah, she does, because it's like, I'm late because of this, and this, and it's like, you shouldn't have to wake up your mom in the morning.
Yeah, so it's Lisa and then it's Krisan, probably.
Yeah. Right, because then Lisa talks about both sides now.
Well, that's after. That is after the Rogan scene.
Right, but like that's they like briefly, like, she talks about it without talking about it, because she does the two. She's like Fassbender in the first act, where she has multiple trains of thought at the same time, and Jobs himself is ping ponging and not do it, and he's doesn't have the ability to keep up with her.
Yeah,
which is really fun. I really love it.
And she questions about it, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it's never brought up by Hoffman or anyone else that Lisa is basically just doing the same thing Jobs is. And no one directly brings that up.
Right. And right now I'm looking up who plays Lisa in each part, because all the Lisas are really good.
All the Lisas are very good. I actually think the best Lisa is this Lisa.
I wholly agree, yes.
I will actually go so far as to say I think the second segment is maybe the best segment of the movie.
I also think it's the best segment. So Lisa at 9.
The first segment is also goated, but like I think I would go second.
So the second Lisa is Ripley Sobo, who is most well known for this. She is also in the TV series The Punisher and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I don't know where. Don't ask. I have no idea. She's also in the 2014 film Winter's Tale. Oh, no! I do know who this woman is! She's the kid that Bruce Wayne hugs at the end of the Metropolis segment of BVS! She has no lines except...
She's that kid?
Yes! She is the kid in the most famous still from the movie of Bruce Wayne hugging the child in the middle of the rubble. That is the kid from the second segment of Steve Jobs!
That's amazing.
Isn't that nuts? The first one is Mackenzie Moss, who is most well known for the Unicorn, and that's basically it. And then Perla Haney Jardine plays her in the third act, who is most well known for playing Penny Marco in Spider-Man 3. She is the Sandman's daughter, and then is also BB in Kill Bill Volume 2. She's more well known for things she did when she was really little, and then she's Steve Jobs.
She's Steve Jobs. Wow, impressive.
Well, her last movie is she's the hippie that sells Brad Pitt the acid dip cigarettes in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Also,
oh my gosh, the one who tries to give him a BJ in the car.
No, that's Margaret Qualley. She's only in one clip, one scene, where it flashes back to him asking how much an acid dip cigarette is and buys it. The hippie that sells Brad Pitt the acid dip cigarette is... She
doesn't get in Brad Pitt's car.
No, it's literally the one flashback.
Okay. Then I can't even picture her face, but fair.
Yeah, no. Yeah, if it was Margaret Qualley, we'd have talked about her already. Margaret Qualley is amazing. No, the hippie in the one quick cut where he's like, I got an acid dip cigarette, and then it cuts back and shows him buying the acid dip cigarette, and then it cuts back, he's like, I'm gonna stash it at your place. That cut back is her. But yeah, no. Weird lineup of weirdly like minutely famous people to play Lisa. But no, Lisa in the second one's great. We'll just jump to the both sides now conversation, I think, because that's the part that she's most well known for in this part.
Sure, we can do that.
I love how she's like basically is like, it was very upbeat, and then the one I listened to was very sad, and the one she listened to is very sad is the one that I think everyone knows. It's the Joni Mitchell one. It's
Yeah.
like that's the one that feels sad, and she's like, and he like questions her on it. He's like, "You're too young to know what sad feels like," and it's like,
No,
really,
you're too young to be regretful.
Yeah, you're too young to be remorseful.
Regretful.
Regretful is that. I was like, that is a great moment too, where it's like, I also love how, like, in each of the 3 bits, Lisa is shown to be artistic, and then in her second clip to be very music driven, and that he notices that in that part and brings it back in the 3rd bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like how important art and music is to her in each bit is really sweet, especially by the end.
This movie, and like we'll talk about it more when we get to the 3rd act, but I think the thing that the first 2 acts do very well is they give us a whole lot of great setup that doesn't feel like setup. Like they just feel like really good conversations in the moment. And then the 3rd act just lets so many of the things that were set up in the first 2 just like come crashing back at us, and it's great. But anyway, I do want to bring up the Chris-Anne conversation. Because it's kind of like a flip side of the first Chris-Anne Steve conversation. Because in that conversation, Chris-Anne definitely has the upper hand. Yeah. She is beating down Jobs. And in the second conversation, Jobs is beating her down. And I think my favorite moment in that conversation, which is, you know me, right? Yeah? And you know I know people. Where are you going with this? If I ever hear that you have done anything like throw a bowl at Lisa's head again, I will get a call from somebody saying we're all set. And that's how I'll know that you're dead. Like that is such a great moment because it's funny, it's scary, it's cocky.
But it also builds off the first part, the emotion that he felt where he was proud of his daughter, even though he didn't think it was his daughter. And at this point, he still doesn't fully claim her as his daughter, but he's defensive like a dad.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I will protect you from the person who is supposed to be protecting you. You will always have me to protect you from your mom. Is like such a great, but he doesn't tell her that. He just makes it known to Lisa. He's like, you hurt her, I'll kill you. He's like a great moment.
And another great moment in that scene is when he finds out that she paid $1,500 to get a priest to bless her house.
Right.
And then when she responds to how I spent, I'm not going to finish it. He's like, were you just about to say how you spend my money is none of my business? And it's like such a great like clap back. It's so good.
And I love the way Fassbender delivers all these lines too, because he never like creams them. He comes into all these lines, even if it's a spike, he delivers them as like nonchalant, matter of fact. Like he'll spike you, and he knows he's spiking you, and you know that he knows he's spiking you, but he's not gonna like lean into the where it's the, and that's how I'll know you're dead. Like he could have delivered it way more dramatic, but he's like, and that's how I'll know you're dead. And it's just like you're like, holy shit! It makes it more real, and like he's so good at that.
No, I agree completely. Like. Yeah, no, this like it's a different delivery than Eisenberg Zuckerberg, which
exactly,
of course, also great performance, but you can feel the emotion and like the pain in every single burn that Eisenberg and Zuckerberg gives. Whereas it's
every spike Eisenberg does, you can hear the smirk at the corner.
Yeah. The smirk or the, like just whatever the pain or the whatever. Yeah. You can feel, you feel that there's so much behind it. And in Jobs, it's like you're staring into an empty trigger. Like it's just, oh, I shot you. Okay. Like
it's not even necessarily that. It's that he's pissed. And and the way he looks when he says it, he's pissed. But his words are never mistaken. He's precise. It's more so that Eisenberg is like a blunt object.
Mm-hmm.
But like Fassbender is a scalpel. He is cutting you with every single word. He's a dagger, and it's amazing. So then I think what we can both agree is probably the best scene of the entire movie, or best part of the entire movie, is the orchestra pit. where he and Wozniak talk, and they're sitting there, and I love the part where he's like, "What's that on your wrist?" He's like, "My new invention, working on a watch." And he's like, "Tell us time." He's like, "Yeah." He's like,
To be fair, it's not his invention.
"Well, it's the thing he's like working on. It's like he's trying to build a smart watch. It's like clearly it's the prototype for what the Apple Watches will be, but like he's attempt. It's you can see that he is always the innovator. It defines their relationship perfectly. Where Wozniak has the idea to make a smartwatch is essentially, and he doesn't even know that's what he's building towards, but it's essentially he has created the very first prototype for an Apple Watch, and he's like showing him how it works, and he's very proud of it. And Jobs entirely is like proud of him for making it, but also he's just so good at what he does, looks at it and knows immediately what's wrong with it as a consumer. And just is like, can you like just change it? Let's say we flew on a plane, we're on a plane, we're changing time zones. Can you just fix it? And he starts fixing, he's like, yes, I believe the person next to me is detonating a bomb. And you're just like,
you think this looks like a bomb?
And he's like, I love that entire segment. We're like, you think this looks like a bomb? I was like, right now, I'm not even entirely sure it isn't. It's just like an incredibly great back and forth between the two. And like from there where he's like, and then they go back and acknowledge the Apple II team. He's like, I can't do that. I'm not gonna.
No, he doesn't.
Not here, but it's the same tone of that conversation where he's like, I'm here because you're gonna get killed. And it's
he's like, why hasn't Lisa heard of me? That's like the big kind of confrontation there is, why doesn't Lisa know who I am? And it's basically like, it's Wozniak feeling resentful towards Jobs because Wozniak did all the work and nobody knows who he is.
Right. And I love this conversation where he's like, where his response is, there's not many fourth graders in America who do know you. Like, and it's like which is such a shitty fuck you thing to say, but he's not wrong. And like, it's exactly feeding into the problem that Wozniak has in that exact moment too, where it's like, I did all the work. Where he's like, what do you do? What do you do? Where he's like, and which leads to my favorite line in the entire movie, where he's like, I'm a conductor. I play the orchestra. And you're the best in your row. You sit right there. It's such a great, like, where it's like, it's exactly right. He's right. And like, that's why he's a genius for what he does. But it's also just that moment where you're like, he's right. And you can't argue. But you're also just like, you feel for Wozniak because Wozniak's also right. Yeah. And it's just where you feel both of them are right. And you want them both to be happy. But you're also just like, I can't argue with Steve Jobs right now. He's right. And it's such a great back and forth there. I also love how honest like Wozniak is in that, where Fassbender basically is like, where he's like, I didn't mean to come kill you in the press. I didn't mean to hurt you. And he's like, Woz, you got a pass for life. And it's like, you know how condescending that is? And that whole conversation that they just explode into, which leads to all of it, where he's just like, you know how condescending it is? I get a pass is just like so brilliant. This is where Rogen really earns an Oscar nomination for me.
Oh yeah,
this whole bit.
This is, I mean, I think I would go so far as to say this is the best acting moment in the movie from both Rogen and Fassbender.
I agree. I do think this is Fassbender's best part of the performance too.
Was this Fassbender's Oscar clip?
No, I think Fassbender's Oscars clip would be Andy in the beginning. It would absolutely be the Russian roulette, because it has to be the part where you get to see him do the most Sorkin dialogue and the most fast talking.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So it would either be the Russian roulette or it would be him talking to his daughter at the end.
Do you know actually what his Oscars clip was?
I don't actually.
I'm gonna see if I can find it.
I'm sure we can. I've watched
start talking about the Scully scene, or I guess we've got the. You really want to? I guess the Hertzfeld Ortiz stuff does have a little bit.
To me, I don't think it matters too much.
That's fair.
I think
I would say the one thing I like from the Hertzfeld Ortiz bit is not even really an Ortiz moment; it's a Kate Winslet moment, where Hertzfeld brings up the Mac article. The parody article, and then that's when Hoffman realizes, oh, the whole thing with Next is for Jobs to get Avi to make Next an OS that Apple will need.
Right, that bit pays off at the end, where it's like at first he goes and talks to Scully, which is an incredible back and forth, where they talk is like, why do people think I fired you? And then you cut back to the night where he was let go. and the true story of what happened. And the intercut story there is brilliant. And I think this is Daniel's best acting in the whole thing too.
Do you know what Fassbender's Oscar moment was?
What is it?
Take a guess.
Is it I Played the Orchestra?
No.
Is it the I'll put 1,000 songs in your pocket?
No.
Is it the Russian roulette?
No.
What is it? Oh, it's the Scully scene.
It's the Scully scene.
Honestly, great call, because he's great in this scene. I think that like when he like breaks down through this then and like is like where he's like people think I fired you because like he's like I get death threats. Like I'm the guy who fired Steve Jobs is sort of like what he's dealing with. And he's like, you did. You kind of did. And like you get to see what really happened. You're like, he didn't, but he kind of.
Scully basically was like, no, I didn't. I really didn't. You forced me. You were gonna oust me.
Right. And then that like moment where they get the back and forth and they kind of get to the end of that moment. It does this moment. No, it's the next part where they talk about his dad.
Yes, it's the next one we're talking about. This is where Scully gives the retaliation to Jobs saying that there's no control.
Right.
And, and he's basically like, nobody, and he essentially says something to the effect of nobody has any control. Nobody gets to choose, when they were born or the circumstances under which they were born or anything like that. And that's a great moment. But, and then it all comes crashing in the third.
It all comes to the head with Joe, which is my favorite little joke. It's a great Sorkin joke where he's standing there at the end. He's like, Joanna's going to come calling for me and it will come calling for me in the next minute. Steve, that was unrehearsed. It's just like so good. And then to have them where then it all comes down to Joanna where he's like, it's a little black cube that does nothing. And that's because they're going to develop the AOS that I need to make this work. I have what they need, and it's going to bring me right back. And it's basically him being like, this is my plan to get back to where I want to be. And you just see how genius he is. And really, it's the pin in the I Played the Orchestra, where you're like, he does. He's playing everyone. And then we get what I think is my singular favorite of the transitions.
Well, there's not really two transitions.
Well, I think it's the better of the two, I guess. But I mean, in terms of all the editing, I think this is my favorite editing choice, where it's all the footage transitions into digital as it shrinks into the shape of into the size of an iPhone until it becomes an eye.
Well, I don't think it's supposed to be like an iPhone. It's supposed to be like the iMac logo.
Oh no, it is. It is supposed to be an iMac, but for a minute there, it looks like you're watching it on a phone.
That's fair.
It's the exact aspect ratio of an iPhone.
I want to shout out quickly in that transition. I love, and I can tell they just included it because it's such a funny bit. I love the Simpsons Newton joke.
Oh yeah.
Of put a reminder in your Newton. Beat up Martin, eat up Martha.
Right. Well, I think it also shows the cultural relevance of the bomb, of how bad it sucked.
Yeah.
And I think so I love that moment. I don't think it's like useless, but I do agree. It's
really I wasn't saying it. I didn't say it was useless. I was just saying I feel like that's something that if it just wasn't so funny, they wouldn't have kept it in. Like they probably would have found a way to shorten it or something. But it's such a great top tier Simpsons joke.
It's a great moment. And then we get to the beginning. He looks the way we recognize him, mostly the black turtlenecks and the gray silver hair. And
I believe they specifically wanted to wait until then to put him in the black turtleneck.
Right.
To psychologically tell the audience, now this Steve Jobs is now at this point the Steve Jobs you know. He was not up until that point. Now he is.
Right. And I love that we start, and at this point, we've never seen him give the keynote. And we still never see him give the keynote. But you see him in the rehearsal, and he's killing it. He is so good in this moment where he goes through and he talks about it and he's about to get and he like tees something up and then there's a stoppage and like that's time and he's like the answer to that was going to be I forget what it was. He's like oh yeah, people biggest usage that they want to use the iMac for is and there's a stop. He's like Stephen, he's like Yeah, so that was gonna be the internet, and just walks out. It's like great, and like how he interacts with his rehearsal audience
Mhm.
throughout, where he's like, "Is that Steve Wozniak I see out there?" And like the way he interacts with everyone, and he's just so upbeat. He's so happy in this, which is so nice to see him be like just a kind, different human than you've seen
Yeah.
in the rest of this movie.
Which again, I think we got to give Fassbender so much credit here for
I think,
because, like,
I think we just need to say quick.
What?
We should just say quick. He should have won.
Yes,
He should have won the
agree,
Oscar.
agree. But also, like, there are so many great, like, transformative performances where an actor gets to play a character and, like, show their transformation, and those are great. Fassbender's challenge, though, is he doesn't get to play the transitional moments. So he has to go from this is who Jobs is at this point, this is who he is at this point, this is who is there, make them feel different enough that they feel like three different versions of this character, but still similar enough that it doesn't feel wildly different. And that is like such a challenge, and it's why this performance works so well.
It's brilliant, and I think that again. So going back into the beginning of this part where he like just interacts with a lot of people, and the lights go out, and he's like, "Why was that different? That was different. Why was that different?" And Andy, who is your favorite person in the world right now, walks up to walks on the stage, and she's like, complete black. And she's like, complete black. He's like, complete blackout. Where it's like you could see him just like excited because all the things he wanted the first time are paying off, and everyone's like, he feels at home and in his element. You get to see him really crush. I love it. And then we get, I believe from here, the first conversation we get is Woz, which is in front of everyone.
No.
Okay.
I don't think that's right. Because basically that is in front of everybody, but like he walks out and he walks back in.
Well, he walks on and off the sides of the stage for sidebars with Joanna.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, he comes out and then comes back in because he doesn't talk until Woz until he talks to Ortiz. He starts talking to Ortiz and like giving him like a backstage show, and he doesn't start talking into Ortiz until he talks to Hertzfeld. And he doesn't talk to Hertzfeld until he has that first confrontation with Joanna.
Right. Which is a great conversation that they have where the line of where he's like, he asks, he's like, why we never sleep together? Because we're not in love, which is a great line.
Yeah.
And like where
and this is finally where Joanna just pushes back to all of Steve's bullshit because she finds out that Jobs threatened to cut off Lisa and her tuition because he didn't stop her mother from selling the house.
Right. And which is an asinine thing to do. And like I think that like and they everyone around him's like, this is crazy. She's a kid. And like but I love that this for me is Winslet's moment where she gets to absolutely just steal the movie for one moment. Where she just, to
be fair, I think she kind of quietly steals.
She does. She's great in everything.
The movie.
She's incredible up to this point. But this is her big Oscar moment, where it's like for me, this is the moment where it's like they should have played this when I think she should have won also. So it's like I fully am like this is the one.
I go back and forth between Winslet and Lee
because
Lee is so good in Hateful Eight, but
yeah, those very you can tell me either of them and I'd be happy. One of those two should have won.
Definitely not Alicia Vikander, who is for my money, the worst of that class.
Probably, definitely. I think they all voted for her because they did nominate her for Ex Machina, but she like.
It is definitely. We should have nominated you for. Well, I think it's more of a like you. We've got two. You had two performances. We couldn't nominate you for both. You were great in both of these. This is the more Oscar-friendly one, but really you're getting an Oscar for being in both. But the thing is not that good in Danish Girl.
Which I think is not to the same degree because I think he's great in both. It would have been the fact that Dana wasn't nominated last year at all is insane. But I think it would have been a similar thing where it's like we nominate you for The Fabelmans, but it's for both this and The Batman because you are like they were never going to nominate you for The Batman, but like those two performances together get you in. And the fact that he's not nominated is fucking
Remember when we thought he was gonna get nominated for the Batman and
We
like
thought it was possible, yeah.
and like March, you and I both tried to delude ourselves into thinking he could get nominated.
Or he could, yeah. I also was like deluding myself. I was like, I knew this would never happen, but the whole year I was like, Colin Farrell, the Batman's my winner. Colin Farrell, the Batman is still my supporting actor winner from last year. I still think Farrell in the Batman.
Insane to me.
I love him. I love Farrell as the Penguin. Farrell
Okay,
as the Penguin.
question.
Farrell as the Penguin. Honest to God, top 3, maybe top 2 Batman villains. Period on film for me.
Do you think Farrell in the Batman is better than Farrell in the Banshees of Inisherin?
I don't know. I don't know.
I can't take you seriously.
I don't know. I probably lean Banshee. I think I like him more in the Batman, but I think the better performance is Banshees.
Okay, I'll give you.
I think I like him more in the Batman because I think that performance is so fucking fun.
It is a very fun performance.
But I think his better acting work is Banshees.
No, I'm being
to be fair, he wins both acting awards for me, for both Banshees and Batman.
Okay, that's actually
like I think he's my winner in both categories.
Is that the only time that happens in your personal Oscars?
No, that happens. That happens in other years.
Or people win 2 Oscars, acting Oscars in the same year?
I'd have to go back and look through. I'm pretty sure it's happened. I know there's a year where I double nominate 3 people in the same year for actor and supporting actor. We talked about that. That's in 2011. I have Clooney, Gosling, and Giamatti all in the same.
Yeah, Giamatti. What sport does he play in Win-Win?
Wrestling. Anyway, so
I heard about that, and I'm not letting you live that.
I'm still so frustrated by that. Anyway, I knew that too. I just it's that format. Fuck with me. I think. But if I had it on one on, never mind, not the show. Anyway, we're talking about Steve Jobs. We're talking about fucking Steve Jobs.
This has literally just become a just a normal conversation. We're not even doing a show anymore.
This is probably the best episode we have ever done, and also the worst episode we have ever done.
Yeah.
If you're listening for Steve Jobs, sorry. You're getting great thoughts interstitched with whatever the fuck we're doing right now. I love what we're doing. This should be every episode. Anyway, but I think that the Joanna conversation is really great, but I think the follow-up then with Andy Hertzfeld is the best that Andy is in the movie, where Stuhlbarg is. Because I think Stuhlbarg in this moment gets to be, like, I think this is the best interaction they have. Because it's that, like, he's like, I was just trying to do my best, and, like, Steve being like, not your job, not your place, berating him. And I think the button on it breaks my heart every time. Where he's like, I don't like you. I've never liked you. And he's like, well, that's a pity, because I've always liked you. And you know that Jobs believes that. That Jobs actually liked Hertzfeld. And you can see it through every other conversation he has with Joanna and where Andy Hertzfeld's not there. He likes Andy Hertzfeld.
Mm-hmm.
So when he's like, that's a shame, because I've always liked you. You're just like, fuck. That hurts. That hurts for, like, you are like, damn, Andy. Like, that hurts. Because, like, that's the absolute pinnacle of someone being the bigger person in a moment where they have never been the bigger person.
Yeah.
Steve's never been the bigger person.
It is such a great moment, and it's the first. But the interesting thing is that this is the first time Hertzfeld is actually standing up for himself.
Right.
For that first scene, the first segment, he is being beaten down by Jobs.
And he can't really push back at all. He tries a little bit to be like, I can't. And he's like, find a way, do it. And he pushes him, which is like, because they talk about it again in that scene where he's like, you got up and you were going to put me out in front of everyone and say that I messed up. And he's like, did the voice demo not work? And he's like, it did. He's like, you're welcome. It's like, you should be thanking me. I made it. I pushed you to be your best, which is a quintessential Jobs thing to do. But like, you're also just like,
it makes me think, and this is the first time I've had this thought. If the voice demo didn't work, I don't think Jobs actually would have done that.
No, I fully agree. I think Jobs is absolutely fucking bluffing.
Yeah.
I think Jobs throughout, especially by the end, you can really see the facade of the first 2 segments is that front he puts up with everyone, where it's like it's his defense mechanism And like for him to be that aggressively just like with everyone, but it's his way of pushing people to be their best.
Mhm.
I really don't think he would have done it.
Yeah.
But I love then that Andy gets that close up where he's like in the old age makeup and everything, and he like closes the door, and you're just like, damn, that's the last we're gonna see of Michael Stewart, who's so fucking good.
And it's a similar feeling to the Rogan confrontation in this.
Oh, every single person. Here's the theme of this final bit is everyone gets closure, but it's all negative closure except for Lisa and Joanna.
Yes.
Who are the two people who have been with him.
Well, and Ortiz and Joel. Like,
yes.
But he never really had a relationship.
He never really, like, I'm gonna be real honest. Ortiz really doesn't fucking matter to this movie whatsoever.
Sure, I like Ortiz in this.
I like him too, but like, he really doesn't matter.
No.
Like,
he's just there to really, all the times he's there, he is there to heighten the intensity of the situation because there's a presence of the reporter, and it's really about two other characters in the scene.
Right. So I love that the closure for everyone is negative in a weird way. It's a weird sort of moment where you're like, fuck, you hate that he leaves it there with everyone, but you know it's like it's over now. Mm-hmm. They're never gonna talk about this again. And so like when it's the big fiery conversation with him and Rogan, which is a great scene. I think all three of the Rogan Fassbender scenes are amazing. But I think this one is so heartbreaking. Where they just are yelling, he's like, acknowledge the album to the team. And he's like, there's no point, blah, 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 back and forth. And the button on it that I love, where it's just when people used to ask me, what's the difference between me and you, the two Steves, I used to say that he was like, I was the builder and Steve was the ideas guy.
Well, Steve was the big picture guy. And Steve was the big picture guy, and I like those details.
I like the details. The line that crushes me is he goes, and now when people ask me, I say Steve's an asshole.
And I will say before that, and that's such a great moment, such a biting moment. But before that, I love the back and forth of I'm tired of being treated like Ringo when I know I was John. And
I always knew I was John.
When I always knew I was John. And Steve's immediate response is,
who doesn't like Ringo?
Yeah.
Which is such a fuck you. That's also, which I love, is like Rogan being like, I'm actually angry. I'm making real actual points with you. And Steve never takes Wozniak seriously.
No.
Like really never does. And that's why in that moment, I'm also just like, where you're like, great joke, great throwaway moment, but also like, fuck you, Steve. Like, dude, this is like this is the most important, longest running friendship you have ever had. And you are belittling this person in front of a room full of people for something that's very valid of him to ask, and he's been asking for years. And you're just like, damn. And I love that part where he's like, what's the last part he goes? Where he's like, your products have always been better than you, bro. He's like, brother, your products have always been better than you.
And that's the way it should be.
Or
he's like, non-binary. You don't have to choose.
You can be a decent. You can be a decent person and a genius at the same time.
Yeah,
and it's such a great. That final bit is that's the heart of the movie to me.
That's the thesis of the movie. Like that's the whole thing. Is that like that's the question? Is can you be a decent person and a genius?
Yeah, and I love that final bit because then you just feel the air sucked out of the room, and the moment that scene ends, which is also in big part Pemberton's really minimalistic score. You really don't notice the score in the scene, but it's doing a lot to help. But the air is just completely sucked out, and the moment that it ends, you can feel everyone in the room and yourself breathe a little, but you're not sure if you should be breathing. Where you're just like, wow. And then the next conversation that I love is him and Scully again.
Yes.
Where he walks in the room and they talk about it. And they do their final bit, which I'll let you get more in depth into. I think the thing that I just am like, this is like because I'm in full debate mode, where I'm just like, I love the closer. I love the Spike final comment. And it's what I grapple with every single person's final moment is the bit there at the end where he's like, the reason I killed the Newton. If you have the pen in your hand and you're holding the Newton, you can't do anything with the other fucking. And he's just like, And he's like, the things we could have done. And Scully goes to the door and turns back. He's like, things we could have done. And you're like, fuck. That's just so brutal. You're just like, that's so brutal.
And
they did
and the iPhone and the actual like
right, which in the background of this entire scene, he's working on the iPhone. If you're looking, he has a table that is an iPhone. It is a giant iPhone screen. He's moving tiles around on an iPhone screen.
I've never noticed
that. It is an incredible detail that in the background of the scene the entire time, whenever he's like at this table in the corner talking to people, he's designing the iPhone. He's literally making the iPhone, which is incredible.
I didn't know that.
It's amazing. Or I guess maybe it's the iPod Touch, but whatever. Like he's working on what will be the.
I mean, yeah, because I think it's probably like because like
probably the iPod Touch, but like the design's identical.
Well, the iPod hasn't even been a thing yet at this point, though.
Right, but he's designing what the touch looks like. It's a touch screen with tiles on it. So he's at the very least designing either the first idea for he's having his first ideas for an iPhone or an iPod in those moments. So which is incredible that he's working on that as like a small detail. I love it. Anyway, so like I love, which is probably why the Newton thing was on his mind, which is what you pointed out. But I love that bit.
Not to go off on another tangent, right. But I will say, now that I'm thinking about this, I want to watch Blackberry. Did you see Blackberry?
I still haven't seen Blackberry.
Dude, you would actually really like Blackberry.
I'm sure I would. I'm sure I would love it.
And like, this is not a spoiler because knowing that the iPhone killed the Blackberry should not shock you. But anyway, that is a major plot beat in the movie is when Jobs is basically the famous iPhone press conference.
Yeah.
And like that's like it's such a great beat in Blackberry. So anyway, watch Blackberry everybody.
I watch Tetris. I finally watched Tetris. That was my
Tetris. Of the three big like 2023 corporate movies, Tetris is the worst one.
Oh, definitely. Tetris
Air, Blackberry, Tetris.
I watched Air 4 times. I have a problem. Anyway, I love Air.
Air was so good.
I fucking love Air. Anyway, can we just do Air again? Another episode on Air? But no, so this final bit, and then like throughout all this is worth mentioning, he's trying to get to talk to Lisa.
Yes.
He's trying to talk to Lisa, and she just keeps saying no. And after Scully, he finally gets to talk to Lisa. Which, weirdly enough, is where a lot of the criticism of this movie comes from. Like, I've heard weirdly, like the Blank Check podcast too, like specifically Griffin, because David loves it. Griffin doesn't like the 1,000 Songs in Your Pocket line. Like, thinks it's terrible.
Here's the thing. As someone who defends a lot of the moments from Sorkin that people say are kind of cringe, I like the 1,000 Songs in Your Pocket.
Right.
So keep talking about what you're talking
about. The criticism that I get about this movie the most is in this portion of the movie, where for whatever reason it's like Jobs is like, I don't know really what the problem people have is. I don't understand what they don't like the dialogue here. I guess like they think it's too mushy.
The 1,000 Songs in Your Pocket. We were talking about this, and yeah, like I said, I have a high tolerance for these kind of Sorkin moments that people find cheesy. I don't have a problem with 1,000 Songs in Your Pocket, but I also didn't have a problem with J. Edgar Hoover. So go figure.
See, I mean, and we'll get to that in 3 weeks. I hate that, but I love I love this. I don't know. I think this is like we talked about last week. This is the middle installment of the Sorkin being a dad trilogy, where he's coming to grips with being a dad, and I think this is the best of the three.
I would agree. Both from the perspective of being the best movie, and I think also the best father-daughter dynamic in all of them.
And I think he works through parenting in this segment the best.
Yes.
So this is where he's working through him becoming a dad and having a kid and everything he wants to do apart and all the hopes you have on them and how that can fuck up a kid. And like, but I also love where he's like, where he reneges the Lisa comment from the first act, where he brings that all back. And he's like, of course I named Elisa after you. And he's like, and she's like, what about the thing? He's like, none of those words mean anything. I made that up. And like, that also comes off the heels of him finding out from Joanna earlier in the act that he didn't get fucked out of Time Man of the Year. That was a sculpture of a computer that they would have had to have commissioned months before the interview. He was never in the running for that award. It was always going to be the computer. And he's like, how could I miss that? And I think this then, which then takes away his biggest hang up he's had the entire movie, specifically around Lisa, and then comes back and makes everything right with Lisa.
Yeah.
Like, the big hiccup for him is gone. And he really thinks, and throughout that entire bit where he, like the conversation with Scully also pushes him to this, where he thinks about his own father figure, what he needed, and his own dad, and like this whole act, the idea of being a father is on full display. I think Fassbender kills it. And I don't know, I don't really understand the criticisms of it, to me, I guess. I really love how he buttons this movie on just the whole, and then going out on stage. I love that we never see him actually give a speech.
I love that, but it's interesting. I hated it the first time I watched it because I didn't know really the structure of the movie the first time I watched it. So I went and be like, okay, cool, we're gonna like finally get to see him on stage, and then the movie just cut, and then the movie cut again, and then the third time I was like, okay, finally we're actually gonna get to see the presentation. And then we never see it. And I was kicked off the first time I saw it.
Which I can understand the expectation of a Steve, like the thing that Steve Jobs is known for.
Yes.
Innovating technology and incredible speeches. And so it's kind of interesting that they were like, we're not really going to give you either in a movie about Steve Jobs. I actually think that's a really ballsy and smart decision.
Yes.
But I do love that the final scene of the movie is him looking at Lisa while he's on stage.
And it's the whole movie. He's like, we can't start late. We can't start late. We can't start late. And finally, he's like, no, it's fine. We can start late. And he hands him the little, and he hands him the printed off piece of paper from the first, or hands her the printed off piece of paper from the first
drawing. From the first day. It's so good. I do love that she's like, you're gonna be late. And he's like, it's fine. We can start late. I love that. I love that. I do love the ending. I love the button. So then, that's the plot of Steve Jobs. Now we get to go into very briefly the last bit of rigmarole.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up quickly. I don't think we need.
There's a lot of, like Moneyball, a lot of issues with historical accuracy. One of which is Pixar co-founder Ed Catmull, who hates the movie. We'll get to that in a second. So Boyle was like, it's what Shakespeare used to do. He would take some of the facts about a man of power and he would guess out a lot of the rest, and he'd gotten away at actually getting at the human of it. And that's what Sorkin does, and I think that's what he does here. And John Scully says that Jeff Daniels plays him incredibly, but misrepresents the Mac and says that Jobs is much nicer than depicted. Bill Atkinson's like, that's not truthful at all. That wasn't his character. None of the events happened. You think of Jobs having a reality distortion field. I think of Aaron Sorkin as having a history distortion field, which is a really sick bird. And he said the only thing he got right in that movie was the spot-on depiction of Joanna Hoffman, including her accent and how she tried to rein in Steve for making an ass of himself. Wozniak, who consulted on Sorkin's script, said that he does not talk that way. I would never accuse the graphical interface of being stolen. I never made comments to the effect that I had credit, genius taken from me. The lines I heard spoken were not things I would say, but carried the right message, at least partly. I felt a lot of the real Jobs in the trailer, although a bit exaggerated. He did not ask to see the final script because he did not think that would be appropriate. It is the creative work of the producer and the writers and the actors and directors and others.
And that's the right attitude to have, I think.
Right. And he said it was hard on me, even being quiet when Jobs refused to acknowledge his child and the money didn't matter, and I can almost cry remembering it. That's what the movie gets right. He also said, I was actually watching Steve Jobs and the other actors not playing them. I give full credit to Boyle and Sorkin for getting it so right. Ed Catmull, though, goes, Jobs would be appalled at his depiction of the film, arguing that he was a kinder person in life. Later in life is portrayed in the picture. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he says, when Jobs left Apple, he then entered into what really is the classic hero's journey. He's wandering in the wilderness. He's working at Next. It's not working. He's working with Pixar. We're failing. In that process, Steve learned some major lessons, and he changed. He became an empathetic person. That aspect of the change of Steve was entirely missed. It's a wonderful film.
It is interesting that in the little transitional part in between Next and Apple, they don't mention Pixar at all, but it does.
I think it's just a very big movie.
Yeah.
The real Andy Cunningham said it's a wonderful film and it's an incredible character study of a really complex man. Aaron and Danny did the best, and said Sarah Snook in a very small role absolutely killed it, and I love her.
We all love her. We all love Sarah Snook. Shiv Roy.
Journalist Walt Mossberg. This is the last one I got because I think it's really good. Compare Steve Jobs to Orson Welles' film Citizen Kane. He's saying it's loosely because of the William Randolph Hearst connection. He said both are aesthetically well developed. Wells created a fictional set of characters in order to clarify that his film was a work of fiction. In contrast, Sorkin's decision to use instead real fictional names detracts real instead of fictional names from the quality of a film, which appears to be a biopic and yet is a work of pure fiction. The Steve Jobs portrayed in Sorkin's film isn't the man I knew. Sorkin chose to cherry pick and exaggerate some of the worst aspects of Jobs' character and to focus on a period of his career when he was young and immature. It would be as if you made a movie called JFK, almost entirely focused on Kennedy's womanizing and political rivalries, and said nothing about civil rights and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Sorkin opts to end his journey just as Jobs is poised to both reel off an unprecedented string of world-changing products and to mature into a much broader, kinder manager and person. Which is like, wow.
I think the movie... I just disagree with that final assessment because I think that third segment is that it shows us that that's where Jobs is headed. That Jobs is going to end up being a kinder person towards the end.
Right. And I think the movie's ending points you to that. I think Ed is just a little defensive of someone he's very close to, which fair. I mean, if they made a movie about either of us and we looked unflattering, I feel like either of us would be like, fuck you. But I still think that
I'd just get Michael Cera or somebody to play me, and it would.
If Sorkin wrote, if Aaron Sorkin wrote Michael Cera playing you, and it was anything like we're going to see next week, I'd be a little pissed. But anyway, so then,
I think Tobey Maguire was.
God, Tobey Maguire is probably so pissed. So then. We're going to get into the awards for this super fast because this is an incredible award season. Snafu. So it's not nominated for Best Picture anywhere in any of the awards, oddly enough. It's nominated only for Winslet and Fassbender at the Academy Awards. At the BAFTAs, those get in, and Sorkin gets a screenplay, which Winslet wins the BAFTA. The Critics' Choice Awards nominates the screenplay and Fassbender and Winslet, which across the board, those were the three things that people they're going to get nominated for. Mm-hmm. It's the Golden Globes where those two get nominated. Sorkin gets nominated for screenplay and Pemberton gets nominated for score. And Sorkin wins the Globe and Winslet wins the Globe. So that's why it's actually really weird Vikander won the Oscar, because Winslet had the Globe and the BAFTA going into Oscars night.
I remember. It was kind of the front runner. It was Vikander or Winslet, and basically, I remember I was very proud because that was the first year I really did Oscar predictions, and I think I got all of them right my first year, and then I've just completely crapped the bed the rest of the time.
That's fair.
Because I picked Vikander because I was like, they're not going to give it to Winslet twice. It's going to be this new person on the block.
Right. But I think what's wild to me is Sorkin not getting in for the script. I think this is a screenplay-heavy movie. He's coming off of 2 nominations in a row and a win, and he will be nominated the next 2 movies after. So it's a weird miss in the middle of a 5-movie run where you'd think he'd be nominated. He had never missed the Golden Globe. So when he won the Globe, you're like, okay, this guy's probably getting an Oscar nomination because he won the Globe. The Globes have nominated him for everything he's made except Max. So
I think it was an issue
it's not a good indicator that he's going to get nominated for an Oscar if he gets nominated for a Globe. But if he wins the Globe, it's usually a good indicator he's getting an Oscar nomination.
I think it was a thing of most, that was a stronger, based on what was nominated for picture and was the Oscar darling, that was a stronger adapted screenplay year than it was an original screenplay year.
I mean, fair. I still think it's wild that I think my 2 winners, my 2 screenplay winners are both not nominated at the Oscars.
For adapted or original?
Both my screenplay winners are not nominated.
What's your original? Is your original Hateful Eight?
Tarantino and The Hateful Eight is my winner. And the fact that Tarantino's not nominated for what is probably his most dialogue-heavy movie ever is crazy. But anyway, that's wild that Sorkin and Tarantino, who are heralded as 2 of the greatest dialogists in film, make their most dialogue-heavy movies ever and are not nominated for Oscars for them.
It's weird. You're right.
That is really weird. I mean, Tarantino's not nominated for The Hateful Eight really anywhere, But Sorkin is nominated for the BAFTA, the Critics' Choice, the WGA, and the Globe.
I think the movie that pushes him out is Carol.
I think so too, but I think it's crazy that Jobs is nominated for screenplay at every precursor, and it wins the Globe. And so Steve Jobs, in reality, should be at least one of the locks to be nominated, if not even a potential front. Like, it's not going to beat Big Short, but like it at least was a serious challenger to the throne of beating The Big Short, and it's not even nominated. I think that's insanity that he misses.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
I agree completely.
Time to rank these in our little bit. For me, I'm so close between this and Moneyball for my number 2.
Same. Goes back. I mean, they're both very close to each other on my actual top 100.
Same. So I'm honestly not sure which one I like more in this moment.
I'll rank mine first just because
I think yours are more set than mine.
I think mine's pretty set, actually. So should I go best to worst or worst to best?
Let's go worst to best.
Okay. Worst, Malice. Duh. Yeah. Then Charlie Wilson's War. And then after that, I go The American President. Then after that, A Few Good Men. Then Moneyball. Then Steve Jobs. And then The Social Network.
Okay.
So Steve Jobs number 2. Moneyball number 3.
I just don't think I can consolidate this small gap in my list where I'm like, because Moneyball's my 21 and Jobs is my 26, and the 4 movies in between are literally my 4 Tarantinos that are all neck and neck with each other. And I'm like, so, and I don't know. I think I like Moneyball. Yeah, no.
Like for my top 100, for perspective, Steve Jobs is at 39, Moneyball is at 41.
You know what? Okay. So I'm gonna go. God, this is why this run here is so hard.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
You know what? I'm actually moving Steve Jobs up to 38. After that watch, I think it deserves. I'm moving it up even higher. I think it's 36.
So Steve Jobs is your 2.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs is my 2. I think after this watch, it flipped back with Moneyball. So they're right next to each other on the top 100 now. But I think my 7's Charlie Wilson's War, my 6 is Malice, my 5 is A Few Good Men, my 4 is The American President, my 3 is Moneyball, my 2 is Steve Jobs, my 1 is The Social Network. So Steve Jobs is like pretty well locked in at the lower half of my 20s. I think Moneyball just dropped to that part as well, because I love both. I think Steve Jobs is correct to be ahead of Moneyball for me. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with Social Network, Steve Jobs, Moneyball being my top 3 in that order. So next week we're gonna talk about what is the worst thing that can happen to you in athletic sports. Is it coming 4th place at the Olympics? Is it losing the Super Bowl? Or is it something else?
Is it losing to Brazil? What is it? Brazil or
losing to Argentina?
Losing to Argentina.
In anything. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about next week. Is what's the worst thing that can happen to you in sports?
I think that the worst thing that can happen to you in sports is having Kevin Costner be your dad. Bye, everyone.